theories about the structure of man's consciousness and many devotees of each theory. There is much talk about the subconscious, the mind, etc., with little or no clear conception of the discussion. It is these many theories and the misconceptions about them that have stood in the way of a clear understanding of much that is being offered mankind today. The major obstruction to objective consciousness is the false belief that one already has it. It is difficult to get an abstract idea across to another, even in the simplest of terms. For this reason, the use of diagrams will be used to produce a clear mental picture and to have a basis for a starting point of understanding that which is being observed. These diagrams are made from the standpoint of function, not location. These functions can be observed and are offered as a study for experimentation and observation. Living man is a functional unit representing the union of intelligence and matter, an individualized expression of intelligence. This intelligence is the source of all knowledge. It knows. This intelligence knows how to produce a male sperm cell and a female egg cell, how to unite these and build a complete body in about 280 days. The body it builds will have eyes that are stimulated by light rays, even though built in complete darkness, ears that will respond to sound waves, though built in silence, reproductive organs to furnish its part in the reproduction of the race, even though these will not be used for several years. It will contain touch corpuscles that react to heat, cold, and pressure only, even though made in a place of constant temperature and equal pressure. A respiratory system that will breathe air and be damaged by water, even though made underwater. A digestive system that will digest fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, even though all the material for this construction job is received through a tube in liquid form. Built in will be all sorts of safety devices to allow adaptation to a changeable environment, even though built in a more or less constant environment. It will have an organ of organization to collect information from all the sensory organs, correlate and produce awareness of the environment and condition of the organism, to mention only a few of its wonders. After the infant is born, this same intelligence, with the use of the tools it has already built for the purpose, will take ordinary food products and convert them into living flesh, blood, bone, and body chemicals to maintain and increase the size of the organism from one weighing 7 or 8 pounds to one weighing about 120 to 200 pounds or more, without interrupting any of the living processes. It further is able to repair damages to the organism by rebuilding the parts damaged. Everything it does is correct for the present circumstances as reported by the awareness. The material body is built from chemicals arranged into a complex substance called protoplasm. The educated mind of man cannot duplicate in any manner this substance. This protoplasm is made into cells of many specialized kinds, each for a specific function. These cells are further formed into organs for specific function, each functioning for the common good and survival of the entire organism. One of these organs, made of many types of specialized cells, is the brain. The brain is the organ of organization and correlation, just as the stomach is the organ of digestion. One of the functions of the brain is to organize and correlate the sensations from the special sense organs, such as the eyes, ears, touch corpuscles in the skin, pain sensory nerve endings, taste buds of the tongue, olfactory nerves ending in the nose, and the many, many more sensations into awareness. This awareness function is commonly called I. It is aware of existence. It is mind, and not to be confused with intelligence. It can be intelligent. As seen in the diagram of the picture of man, awareness is shown both as a phase of intelligence and a phase of body, the union of intelligence and matter. The feeling experienced by the infant awareness in the uterine world is complete comfort. That's all it knows until one day this comfortable state is disturbed. It doesn't like disturbance. This is very obvious by the sounds of complaining. The tiny infant for the first time has experienced the contrast of comfort versus discomfort, pleasure versus pain. It is from these first sensations of disturbance through the senses that a decision is made, and all other feelings will be compared as good or bad, according to whether the feelings are sensed as pleasure or pain. It is from this time on that the purpose of living is to be non-disturbed. This purpose is completely unconscious, unrecognized. This is the great error, the master decision, the prime motivator. Decisions made with feeling, not words, are below the conscious level, and this decision or conclusion to be non-disturbed will remain unconscious within that individual until recognized, reevaluated, and acted upon through reevaluation. Human beings are spirit, having a human experience. Living this human experience in the physical world incurs some side effects, or byproducts. The science of man calls them the four dual basic urges. The four dual basic urges are mere expansions of the first infantile decision, to be non-disturbed. The other infantile, childhood, and so-called adult decisions are attempts to have means of realizing the four dual basic urges. To complain to get my way, to stick up for rights, to please others, to obey proper authorities, to self-improve, and to blame. The misconception that the four dual basic urges is the purpose of living causes untold misery in the human experience. Logic tells us that if this is error, then there must be some other purpose of living. That is the point of the work, to find and make and live a new purpose. But the old one, though erroneous, is so ingrained, it takes some heavy looking. So let's look. The first decision made to be non-disturbed expands as the infant grows beyond the physical to gain pleasure and avoid pain, into mental to gain attention and avoid being ignored or rejected, and the emotional level to gain approval and avoid disapproval, and eventually to power to gain being needed, feeling important, or appearance of importance, and to avoid feeling inferior or unimportant. It is just common sense to want to be as comfortable as possible and avoid being in obvious situations of discomfort. This is also a responsibility. There's nothing wrong or bad about the four dual basic urges. They're universally experienced. They are the nature of the human experience derived from our senses as sensing beings. They will be present to some degree. To pretend they don't exist or to try struggling towards some exalted state where they are not felt is as deluded as to think they're the purpose of living. What is inaccurate about them is this: they are not the purpose of living. They are byproducts of living. Every human infant the world over makes the mistake of deciding to be non-disturbed is the purpose of life itself. It is not. There is another purpose for each to discover for himself or herself. When this new purpose is discovered and accepted with feeling, the person knows the four dual basic urges are side effects only and values them accordingly. Until that time, the four dual basic urges control the human with the wrongly made, invalid purpose. The understanding of self and purpose is discovered in the first decision, the four dual basic urges, the prime motivator. If someone is living merely to gain attention and approval, he or she will perk up when someone doles a little their way. They will keep in contact with the source of the attention and approval and even strive for appreciation. Eventually, they will feel their value as a person depends on how the other sees them. The same goes for the escape side. If someone causes one pain in the form of rejection or disapproval, a terrible weight is felt. If they reject someone, that person will stick like glue to try to rectify the situation, to gain back their feeling of value or self-worth. Approval and disapproval are seen as opposites. Especially people assume that if someone didn't comment on their new dress, hairstyle, car, whatever, they must not like it. And lack of approval equals disapproval. This is not so. If you're not needed right now or important in some particular situation or being useful at the moment, does this automatically mean you are useless, inferior, powerless, non-existent? Of course not. It's the four dual basic urges that control people, and no one wants to be controlled. It's a sad fact that most people think control or be controlled, and live in constant conflict over this, trying to control and manipulate others, complaining about or even miserable from being controlled by others. Think of any single relationship in your life that was painful, maybe with a parent, sibling, friend, spouse. With some examination, you'll see that what was wrong with the relationship was control. Check it out. Either you couldn't make them do what you wanted, they kept trying to make you be different, that is, for you to do or be what they wanted, or whatever you gave or did, it wasn't enough, and vice versa. All acts of violence are merely efforts towards gratification of the four dual basic urges. The fourth dual basic urge, the urge to power, is never ever satisfied under the old false beliefs, the old purpose of living. Control only wants to expand. It is never satisfied. The concept that control over people equals power is an adulterated concept. Because the ideal is false, there is never enough control. That person is always trying to expand his so-called power. Real power is at hand to anyone at any moment and has nothing to do with control over others. Real power is over one's inner state, and is the only power one ever needs to work on developing. Real power is an inside job and has nothing really to do with others except in response to them. Anyone who has achieved power over his own inner state will have no interest in controlling others. Only the weak try to control. Only the strong can afford to be gentle and kind. The false self, made up of conditioning, sees opposites where none exist. It also sees survival as depending on gaining and escaping these so-called opposites at the same time. Utterly impossible. It says gain attention, escape being ignored. The very crux of the problem is that the four dual basic urges are seen as opposites. This is the source of all conflict. We want to gain pleasure, but escape is opposite pain. Life does not operate in opposites. Pleasure and pain are just degrees on a scale of sensations. Life is degrees of experience. Everything in life is degrees of expression in relationship. A favorite expression of a very wise teacher is the breath that warms your hands and cools your soup, hot or cold. If we were to give a list of opposites of the four dual basic urges, we would be making a list of good and bad, wouldn't we? Some people think that the purpose of the teaching is to make them good. The brain works by associations, and so people make associations between the four dual basic urges and good and evil. The work is to make us conscious, not good or better. A conscious person is harmless and will harm no one, not himself nor another. The science of man refers to wanting more, better, different, to describe plain old greed, the one-word definition of the four dual basic urges as purpose. Fear is the other side of the coin, but it's also greed. Greed to be non-disturbed. Greed to be non-threatened in any way. Greed to be non-challenged. Fear that we won't get it all. Fear that insatiability will not be accommodated. Not enough of what I want to go around. When we live to gain, we live in greed. When we live to avoid, we live in fear and loathing. How can a greedy, fearful, loathing person possibly make any contribution to life? What would the world miss should he depart? More, better, different has the accent on the gain side of the four dual basic urges. We have pleasure, we want more. We get more, it becomes boring, then we want a better quality. Eventually, even the best isn't stimulating, so we want something different. It's easily recognized, whether in others or in ourselves, indulgence for extreme. How fast can we become a millionaire? How fast can we get the promotion? How fast can we lose weight? How fast can we get buffed? How fast can we become conscious? And with an offer of money to speed things up. If you're striving to have pleasure and comfort, have you ever had enough? If you're striving to have attention, have you ever had enough? If you're struggling to have approval, have you ever had enough? If you're struggling to feel important, have enough people ever looked up to you? Or do you want more? If you've been striving to avoid pain, have you ever avoided enough of it? If you're struggling to avoid any possibility of being ignored or rejected, have you ever been assured of it? Completely enough? And if you're struggling to avoid all disapproval, are you always on guard against it? If you're striving to avoid feeling unimportant, have you ever felt powerful enough over others or circumstances? Always the cry for more. Subtle things that are really only thinly disguised greed are not recognized as quickly. Some read numerous bestsellers and history books a week, unable to tell you a thing they've read, appearing to be studious and self-improving at first glance. But what's really going on is a greed for non-disturbance. The challenge sitting quietly in a chair identifying with someone else's doings are slim compared to living out real challenges ourselves. We get greedy for attention, and especially for approval. We sometimes demand more and more attention of friends, thinking we're just being friendly. That's what friends are for, right? Often pretense of hospitality covers a demand for more attention. A student who finds himself in the position of extending covert invitations could stop at that moment and question his purpose. A large television manufacturer gave a gift of appreciation, a television set, to each of its employees for outstanding job performance. Molly was outraged when they were asked to pick up the set at the manufacturing site 3 miles away. She doesn't think she's greedy at all. She thinks her rights were violated. Silly Sally lives a thrilling life, then finds that the guys aren't very considerate of her. She doesn't see her greed for sensual excitement at any price. She thinks rather she's a victim of men. Students who want to work on greed look for it in the subtle places. While one would not want to pig out at the buffet table in front of everyone, check to see if the same behavior is not cloaked and done elsewhere. All misery in the world can be boiled down to 2 words: greed and fear. Greed for pleasure on all its levels. Fear of discomfort or pain on all its levels. Greed wants continual everlasting pleasure. Not possible. And fear thinks pain is fatal. Not true. Greed is based on the false belief that the body needs pleasure. It doesn't. It needs air, water, food, clothing, rest, shelter, transportation. And we all have those. Pleasures are extras, gifts, byproducts, never needs. It is false to believe I need more attention than I'm getting. If you're not a hermit and the science of man is not for hermits, you will get some attention. More than what naturally occurs is a want, not a need, nice as it may be, and it is. It is false to believe we need approval. Little children do need approval in order to thrive, but mature adults do not. It is nice, but it is completely unnecessary. A mature adult, a new man with new purpose, does not need approval at all, because he needs no validation whatsoever. He knows what he is and what he can do. If you know what you need, that is something. If you only know what you want, it is not to pretend that it must therefore be what you need. For the 2 to coincide, you must have a certain quality of knowledge. When your needs are great enough and wants are small enough, all of your difficulties will disappear. The master decision that the purpose of living is to be non-disturbed, and the 6 decisions made in an effort to accommodate the master decision produces only conflict, struggle, resistance, disintegration. In the struggle to gain pleasure and comfort, it is important to have my way right now, and the way to get it is to complain, stick up for rights, to please, obey proper authorities, to improve the self, to blame. It will use these same 6 decisions seeking non-disturbance to avoid pain. Again, it will use the same 6 little henchmen to make it important to gain attention and to avoid being ignored or rejected. It uses complaining, sticking up for rights, pleasing, obeying so-called authorities, self-improvement, blaming to gain approval. And it does the same thing to avoid disapproval. Again, the same old tired, unconscious decisions are used to try to gain feeling important and to avoid feeling useless, inferior, or unimportant. The nature of the physical body, reinforced by physical, mental, and emotional conditioning, has led us to believe the 4 dual basic urges are the purpose of living. They are not. They are a subhuman purpose of living. They are byproducts. Mankind was designed to evolve beyond this. This evolution depends on his discovering and making a new purpose of living. Check it out. Watch conflict. It is the indicator that our purpose of living is the first decision, the 4 dual basic urges. Conflict always means, I have a dual purpose. Wake up and watch. Watch to see that conflict is internal warfare. Watch to see that conflict is anti-life. Watch to see that pain is inevitable in the human experience. Misery is optional. Watch for illusion. Don't look for truth. Look for illusion. And when you see illusion, you will discover truth. Observe without condemning or justifying. Watch everything we do. Watch feelings and desires. What motive are they based on? What purpose? Is it to gain pleasure and comfort? To gain attention? To gain approval? To gain feeling needed or important? And to avoid any pain or discomfort? To avoid being ignored? To avoid rejection or disapproval? To avoid feeling useless or inferior? Are these 4 dual basic urges seen as the purpose of living rather than the byproducts of living? We are not interested in looking for truth, only in finding misconceptions. When the false is seen, truth is. The human being is composed of several aspects which are designed to work together in harmony. The biological function or life principle, true intelligence. It is an abstract, however, its expressions of intelligence are concrete and can be observed. This is the source of all human vitality. The life force always responds appropriately to the information received by the awareness function. These 2 functions work together in human form, the physical body. The awareness function, I, is simply a function of life, not a separate identity or thing, though each is unique and each is a point of view. We usually refer to awareness function by our name, that which we call I, or think of as mind, although a transformed awareness is far more than ordinary mind. The unconscious error made early in infancy that the purpose of living is to be non-disturbed is the granddaddy of all misconceptions. It is not I. Anything derogatory towards life is not I. Real I does not complain, demand, or blame. These are derogatory towards others, the A side. Real I does not please for effect, have any authorities, nor have any need to improve itself. These are derogatory towards self, B side. Real I has nothing to complain about because it is free to experience what is. Real I sees no rights but appreciates many privileges. Real I blames no one and no thing because it is responsible for itself. Real I does not use affection as a tool to control. It knows real love. Real I has no authorities because it knows what it is, an expression of the source of all. Real I is unique, one of a kind, and so cannot possibly be measured against any standards, the basis for self-improvement. The not-I thinks it is validated by attention, approval, and feeling important or useful. Real I knows that I am, whether anyone looks, approves, appreciates, or not. Not-I feels annihilation by being ignored, rejected, feeling worthless or useless. Real I knows I am, even when another fails to recognize me, rejects me, even hates me. It doesn't matter a bit. Real I is spirit having human experience. Because it is a human experience, it is in the world, though not of it. When there is new purpose, the awareness function I receives impressions from within and without, body, mind, others, world, life, and evaluates these with feeling, which is received by the life function. Life always does the appropriate thing for the information received through the physical body. The result is that the physical body carries out all the actions deemed of value by the awareness and appropriate to the evaluation according to the life function. The harmonious functioning of a whole being depends upon accurate assessment of impressions from the awareness function, without misconceptions. When one knows what I am, a unique expression of life, as is everyone else unique. Where I am. In a challenging place where ideals do not exist. What's going on? Every extreme of every kind and everything in between, much of it resistance to my initiative. What I can do. Freely experience what is, then we will know freedom. disguise. You have a role to play to fulfill your purpose. Play it and have fun. There is nothing holy about your sadness. It feeds the lower elements. Keep the tone high. Don't make it important.